Hi there. My name is Scot Keith. I'm the founder and CEO of 123 West. We originally started in Vancouver. We've got offices now in Vancouver and Toronto, people doing the ground in Montreal. We've been one of Canada's top small agencies. In fact, we've won Canada's small agency multiple times, and in the mix of one of the top agencies now that we've kind of got bigger as one of the top agencies. We do everything from advertising and design and brand strategy and branded content, and everything's digital. So yeah.
Great, great. Tell us a little bit
Amazing.
about yourself personally. Maybe what took you, what brought you to this place?
So I used to think typical Canadian. I thought I was going to be a professional hockey player. I was a goalie, and that didn't quite work out. So I played high level hockey, and then what happened is once I realized I put all my eggs in that basket, I needed to do something else. I took an aptitude test in high school, and all I can remember was either advertising or the army. So I picked advertising, and so I did a 3-year program at a school in Hamilton, Ontario. Absolutely loved it. The last year, we actually ran our own agency. Then started, you couldn't get any lower than where I started in the ad business. I got paid $15,000 Canadian a year, which is like no money in euros and in American dollars and so on. And I was a media estimator. So what my job was, and I was just happy to be working. What my job was that I basically was the one who would do all these different costings and stuff like that, and eventually work with people who planned the media and then bought the media for all the clients. And I worked at this agency. We had Coca-Cola and a whole bunch of stuff. So I was working in Toronto, didn't even know one person in Toronto, and but loved what I did. And then just, what I loved about it was like back again, even though I wasn't playing team sports at a high level, I was on this team and everyone had their own job and very specific and so on. And we wanted to do, great creative and great media and great stuff for clients. So I just kind of thrived, of just being part of a team. And of course, when I started, I was just a small part of a team, and over time you kind of get to do more. So later on moved to another agency, and then couple years later I moved to Vancouver, and then I became an account person. So now I'm in charge of helping run the account, and I worked on this great beer account, and we got involved in snowboarding and stuff like that, and it was so much fun. And Yeah, then luckily went to a couple other agencies and then moved back to Toronto, started running companies, started my first company in Vancouver again, because my wife and I just love the lifestyle out west, in 2010. And it was called Community with a K. And it was all about a community of talent. And so I had all these people all across the country, and I basically ran it out from my hotel. The funny thing is, I was working in 2010. I'm kind of doing what we're doing right now, but it was on Skype, and uh,
Sure.
and that
Ahead of
went
the
great.
trend, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then in 2013, we started 123 West, and it shot out of a cannon a bit. We started this company with so I'm more of the business background now, and then I had my partner Jeff Harrison, who was like a world-class designer, and Rob Sweetman and Brian Collins, who are the top creative people in the country. They were all at an agency called Rethink, which is a great agency in Vancouver, and basically we got together. We spent a whole bunch of time together of like, the world doesn't need another agency, so how are we going to be different? So our whole business model was low overhead, high talent. And what that really meant is the money we would save on the overtop offices and stuff like that, we would put into hiring the very best people. So we started the agency in a garage in East Vancouver. And we ended up getting national news in the Globe and Mail, which is like our New York Times. And there was a whole article, four guys in a garage. And we kind of shot out of a cannon. We started winning all these different clients. And we had a problem, though. We actually didn't have a washroom in the garage. We'd have to go into Jeff's house, and we had all these clients come in, and so we wanted to kind of keep that going, that low overhead mentality, because it kind of created a culture. You're into doing the work with really talented people, and it was all about the work. So we found this crazy 100-year-old linen factory, and it was a working linen factory. If you ever seen Breaking Bad, it was like that, like linen factory to get to the meth lab. and
Jeez.
um and it was insane. There'd be carpets and industrial clothes going around, and we end up negotiating this free contra deal for free space. And even again, it was like now we're in an idea factory, and then we started hiring more and more people, and yeah, and so to this day, we actually eventually outgrew that place, and both of our offices in Toronto and Vancouver are still very low overhead, and we keep those principles like put the money into the people. It's great for the people you work with. You work with really talented and nice people. This is a fun job, and then we'd rather invest in people, and then like $1 million paintings and fancy couches and stuff like that. So we keep it very simple, and it's all to the benefit of our clients. It's people do the work. That's what our product is. And so yeah, to this day we have very low turnover because we hire not only on talented people, but their character. And in fact, I care about character more than anything now. And you can get more talented, but you kind of either have character or you don't. And if you're definitely surrounded by lots of people with great character, you'll even have better character. And so yeah, that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so interesting. What a unique approach to a business and so forward thinking.
Anytime you're ever in business, like the funny thing about it, like at a certain point when you've done this, I've been doing this for over 30 years, is the work actually starts getting easy. It's the people that become challenging, right? So if you got great people in your own company, great production partners, music partners, media partners, research partners, clients, and so on. So if you got great people and they communicate well, they're honest on what they like and what they don't like, and they're all trying to help and they're trying to be positive while they're actually trying to achieve the goal, it's easy, and it's fun. Greatest job ever. And while we're doing this work, and maybe we're shooting at night or doing all this stuff and we're on a deadline, why not have some fun? When you actually are having fun, it's almost like this magic pixie dust goes over a project, right? And
Yeah.
honestly, almost they don't let me go into all the shoots and stuff anymore. I'm stuck kind of like running at the mothership half the time. But I remember just I get to go the odd one, but like you could just feel it. You could feel the sound people, the actors, the makeup people, the craft service person, like the sound, like audio people, the musicians. You could just feel it when they're just giving it that extra little bit more on what their job was and on the performance. And like if you want to do world class work, like everyone's got to be at the absolute top of their game.
Yeah.
Everyone.
It's interesting how you mentioned that team dynamics. It happens in music, absolutely. When you're in a
Hmm.
band with
Oh, maybe even
people,
more. Yeah.
yeah, you don't necessarily need the most talented guitar player. You need the guitar player that understands that you need to serve a song. It's not about showing what you can do with an instrument, right? It's about making the song better, and that required a lot of listening to what everyone else is doing and seeing if it's better to play or if it's better to maybe be quiet for a couple of bars, right? And
Yeah. Or
even
their
when we
body
work,
language, right? You
yes,
go watch, like you go even watch an orchestra and they're like they're dialed in and they're looking like they're having the best time ever. Any musician and an ensemble group, amazing.
absolutely. Same deal with when we work in advertising, right? Like you're doing a TVC, and sometimes we want to compose the best possible music and show, how great we are. But maybe that particular piece isn't necessarily about the music. Maybe you need to show the acting a bit more, or there's voiceover, or the brand needs to have more of a spotlight on it, right? Whatever it is. So it's all about the team and what the ultimate goal is, the common goal is. So yeah, it's I think you said something great, which is about it's this thing about it's not about the talent, it's about the team. Well, let's segue into music a little bit, right?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
we'd love to know just your own personal relationship with music and what platforms you use to listen, who your favorite bands are, and then maybe we'll go on to kind of how music plays a role in your day-to-day relationship with CDs and the projects themselves. But yeah, firstly, just like your personal, a relationship with music.
Yeah, eclectic. Totally eclectic is I grew up in a small town in Canada, not too far from Detroit in the 70s and 80s, and the Detroit music scene, the Detroit Rock City. So I loved everything from Zeppelin to Rush to Boston to U2 to didn't even got into the started getting into the heavy metal stuff like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and all the brands like that, Motley Crue. I was all into that. But then it's just like I like pop music, like I love Prince. Um and then everything jazz big time. All the classics and stuff like that, the Coltrane's and stuff like that, Miles Davis and so on, especially live. I love that. Um, Electric or EDM type music. I like that. I've gotten really into country the last couple of years, and I love guitar-based music and drums and so on, and singer-songwriters, and of course rap and yeah, it's just really eclectic. So I'm obviously on Apple Music and Spotify and last night we had some people over. I'm actually in Costa Rica right now. And so we had some people over. Like, I love the fact I can just put Italian dinner music. And actually, I've got all these things, or I put like Costa Rican beach vibes. And then I kind of get all this stuff. And, I think like a lot of people, I probably don't have enough time. And so I like having music curated for me. I love watching stuff like NPR's Tiny Desk on YouTube and stuff like that. There's a whole bunch of artists I've never seen before in that small condensed environment, which is fantastic. So yeah, I'm all over the place on all these
Yeah,
different
you have
channels and
honestly
so on.
covered so many, and I love that so much because it sounds like you're very passionate, and that might not always be the case necessarily. You might have agency owners or people that work in the industry that, leave the music to someone else, but the fact that you have such a passion across the board is probably incredibly
Yeah.
helpful when it comes to
Yeah.
projects.
And I love what I love, but it's one of those things, it's kind of like jazz, right? Like, I love what I love, but don't ask me of like what, who played at the New York blank blank place in 1960. I don't know it all. And so it's just, music, classical, same thing. Like there's probably not, my dad played the bagpipes. I can't play an instrument. I can't play an instrument at all. I just did not inherit his ability, but I love Scottish pipes and drums music too. Absolutely. Like I hear it. My dad passed a couple years ago. The song, like that, he just would be proud playing all the time, and I'd go watch him even later in life. He would be with his band, and he'd play in Canada, and they would go to Europe, and I went and saw them play a bunch of times, and yeah, so that music, like that's the music that gets me the most jacked. Like some people think that it's terrible. I love it. And it's like war music, right? Like I really want to get piped up. I'm listening to Scotland the Brave.
That's incredible. That's so specific, but amazing. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Gosh. So then in that same kind of vein, do you think about music when it comes to, hiring people? Does music play a role in like your relationships with them? How heavily involved are you specifically when it comes to maybe music choices in projects?
Yeah.
And yeah, how it
I u-
influences you.
I used to, now that I'm CEO, has said like, like we've got so many talented people that are passionate about music and everything else that, generally we defer to their expertise. And like the other thing too is that even when we have people that are really passionate and knowledgeable about music, like we want to then hire, music experts because that's again of like you kind of don't know what you don't know, right? And like there's always a better track out there. There's always a better original song out there. And so when you hire really well and obviously we brief people in of generally here's the goalposts of what we're thinking, but like we want to hear and so that's where I'd have influence of more of like bring in the very best people and listen to them obviously go with your gut at the end of the day, what's right for the brand, the ad that we're doing and so on, like obviously the mix and stuff, but like, but listen to experts. And also too, of like, I'm at it in a different way. Like, you just see too many ads and stuff like that. Like, they haven't thought it through. In fact, like one of my big frustrations when I was doing lots of productions earlier on in my career is often it seemed to be music was even a little bit of an afterthought of like, you spend all this time on writing the ad and you got the director and all that stuff like that. You got kind of like a track down that you're using where you're editing, but you're like, now you got like a week or two to actually either find a track or something like that. And how many ads have we seen that the whole ad is like one of the best things ever because it just took like this world class song. I remember years and years ago, Volkswagen used a Pink Moon by, is it Nick Drake? Um, and the whole like I'm getting chills just even thinking about that ad right now. Is that ad was really just a young couple going for a drive and then just kind of like looking at the stars and this pink moon. And it was just absolutely brilliant, but it was brilliant because this song that got recorded in I think sometime in the 70s and stuff like that. And it actually then brought back that artist for a while back. He became really, really popular again, even though he had passed away many years before. And so I think, just thinking about it in a different way, like even like I work with this kind of legend, Daryl Shee, many, many years ago in Western Canada as a creative director. And even when he was doing, like, we're doing radio, like this guy, he was so talented at writing for radio, like real, true audio, that he would write thinking, first of all, who he wanted to cast. He would hear the voice, he knew the voice, and he would write for that voice. And so then sure enough, you're like, I hope that person's going to do it. And then you read stuff like Quentin Tarantino, right? One of my favorites. And like he already knows like who he's going to cast. He writes the character based on that person and who they would be. And then he is absolutely thinking about what kind of like, what music tracks like Kill Bill and Jackie Brown and Reservoir Dogs and like all like his films are like I get the soundtrack for every film he has, right? And stuff like that. And so I love his films because they're big and explosive and crazy and fun and good writing and this killer music. So yeah.
Yeah, we we did a we gave a talk at some university a couple of years ago, and we had, I don't know if you remember this, but there was this technology, this headsets that you could choose the channel you would listen to. So we actually did the test. We showed on the screen. We had a presentation, right? But we showed like a scene of a woman going into the ocean, and on the channel one we had some scary music, and on channel two we had love music. And we divided the audience into two. And it sounds stupid, but the truth is there were two pieces of information, the movie and the music. And we asked, what do you think happens? How do you think this ends up, right? And fair enough, like it sounds silly to say it, but
Yeah.
half of the audience said this is great. She's going into the ocean to meet her lover, and the other half was like she's gonna get killed or a shark or whatever's gonna happen. And I think it was David Lynch who said music is half the movie.
Oh yeah.
Um, and we run into that so much that, like you said, so much time and effort has been put into a script. And then we get the brief and we have 1 week until we have to go on air.
I
And
know.
we're still trying things that go from rock and roll to EDM to just atmospheric or sound design. It makes you wonder. But I think this is a good this leads very nicely into one of your pieces of work that I don't know. I mean, obviously you've seen it. I don't know if you want to see it together just to have it freshened up, but this one that you did that used a song, and it sounds like the whole project like was written around the song.
I'll be home for Christmas.
that one. So our team on that, yeah, well, obviously that's a famous song, right? So is this a different take? And because it's BC Children's Foundation, is many of those kids that we actually use in the ads are actually really actually, patients there. And they I tell you, like every time I tell the story, I get all kind of choked up. But like we have like 3, 4, 5 year olds sometimes that like they're going through the toughest time ever, and they actually want to be in these ads. We use the odd actor, young actor, and stuff like that in certain roles and so on. But many of the people in our ads and stuff like that are real kids at the hospital. And so the music on that, we took a famous song, and of course, it's like a child's voice and slowed it down, and it's essential on that thing is that these kids and their families and the doctors and nurses and the researchers and everybody at the children's hospital, who are just the most amazing, passionate people ever, they're doing everything they can right now that we're in December, to get these awesome kids home, right? And so some people can have small stays, but some kids and their families, they're going through a really tough time over a long period of time. And so every donation helps. Like the thing that we've always loved on that campaign, when the team kind of cracked that, like the whole overarching, what we call brand platform, is small is mighty. And it's a triple entendre. It's like these kids are small, but oh my gosh, are they mighty, fighting like crazy. Number two is that they do all this research. So they have all these scientists and do all these research studies, and they're curing child diseases. There's thousands of rare diseases that sometimes even $5,000 grant can actually cure some. Maybe only 5 kids in the whole country have this, but we can cure this. And a lot of the stuff is happening at places like BC Children's and Toronto Sick Kids and so on. And then the third thing is, a lot of people think that I'm not a billionaire. Like billionaires donate, like they put up a wing in a children's hospital and so on. And and they're very grateful for those who do. But the reality is that like we can donate $20, $30, $40, whatever. And but when it starts to add up, particularly with younger people and so on, that can invest in kids and helping kids in their own communities, it really adds up. So the glass campaign that we just did, we did a whole thing on people who celebrating the donors. We called it the League of Donors. And basically they're up 500% versus a year ago on donations. And so, we've seen what real money does from the community to help out. And so that spot, that spot would not have been the same if we didn't have that particular song. So that was one of those ones where it's very music driven, right? And so they knew that they had that. I don't have all the details if they already finished the song before that or they did it in post, but we knew it was going to be that song. And so everything was kind of the shot list, the editing, all that stuff like that had to match the song. It's great.
That's great. So, I mean, they're doing incredible work, obviously. But let's just get a little bit. I don't know how much of this you would know. I don't know how
Yeah.
much you were involved with it, but going into a project like that, there is a fair bit of licensing they need to get done to
Yeah.
get a couple of things, right? I don't know if you want to talk about this or do you want me to talk
Yeah.
about it?
Well, just as an overarching on that is that, of course, part of our team of experts, like we have production experts and so on, and obviously we hire production teams and so on as part of the value, right, of people that really know what they're doing and how to do it properly. It's actually shocking, as an aside, on how many companies and agencies are stealing music. This go on social media right now, TikTok
Yeah.
and so on, and it's just like, you're not allowed to use a Taylor Swift song
Yeah.
to promote your coffee brand. Even if it's a social video, you're not allowed to do that. And so we don't do that. We go through every proper channel. We're not ripping off artists and stuff like that. We want to make sure that if we're using someone's intellectual property, that we're paying. Like, it's a huge issue, I think, in our whole industry. But for us, it's just like, we will never, ever. And if we make a mistake, oh my gosh, we're going to get corrected. But so everyone knows, but you hire experts, and when experts, not only do you get paid to do the right thing, but you actually get paid to not do the right thing, and
Crazy.
protect clients, right? And so
Yeah.
yeah, so all that stuff is negotiated. Just when talking to our team is just anything like that where it's like licensed and so on. Like there's so many different, you have to get the rights for market use and how long and all that stuff like that. Because it's BC Children's, like, they're registered charity and stuff like that. And because it's about saving kids, sometimes if you get to them early enough and you can talk to them and like, you can do a lot more easier than you would if it was, just a private brand, right? And so you see that a lot in that type of space that people like, people are willing to help and artists are willing to help and so on, and they don't want to be exploited and stuff like that, of course. But that takes time, right? Like that takes time. Like typically when we do something like this, and I know for instance on this, the second you've got the idea on this and you're starting to show the client, then you've got your production people on it right away. Anyone
Yeah.
that shoots something like this thinking that they might get this and hope that they get this in the 11th hour, that is way too risky. Is you got to get your people on it right away and understanding what that costs, right? It's not like there's necessarily just a rate card. Hey, this song costs this. Like there's a little bit of that, but like generally, no, it's negotiated, right? And so and it takes time because sometimes maybe an artist is deceased. You're dealing with their estate. Some people are on it, some people aren't. Sometimes you see this all the time, like, companies buy the rights to someone's book and
Yeah,
so on. So sometimes
of
that's
course.
easier. Um, Everyone, like, there's so many middlemen in some of these things. You're like paying everybody off to get this, but if it makes sense, we've all had issues in the past too where we really wanted to get a song, and it was just that's just we don't even like that we don't even have close to that amount of money that they want to
Yeah.
get. And then you kind of know too, like, hey, don't write an ad with the Led Zeppelin song. They have licensed it before, but like they don't generally do that. And so, so just know that just because you want it doesn't mean it's going to happen too. And sometimes if you pay so much for the song or the music license, then you're going to have to, maybe you were hoping to do a 3-day shoot, maybe you're only doing a 1-day shoot now. So all of a sudden your production gets scaled down. So it's like moving three-dimensional puzzles pieces all the time, right? So great production experts, and again, a great team, and knowing what the budgets are and everyone being clear on what we want to do and how we get there. And you have your plan A, your plan B, and your plan C. And sometimes you just need to stick with your plan A, because if you go plan C, you've compromised everything and you went from something brilliant to something just okay. And then why'd you even do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's this is a particularly interesting case as well because there's a bunch of variables, right? In this particular case, you need the publishing of the song. And just to break
Yeah.
it down for those who don't know, publishing means the melody, the lyrics, but it doesn't necessarily mean any particular recording. The particular recording of a song is what's called the master rights. So this is an interesting case because you needed the publishing rights, but then you needed to get someone else to produce a new master recording for this, which also is such an integral part of the idea behind this campaign, finding the right song, but also making the right version. And as you say, when you're looking for publishing rights and you're looking for someone to sing it,
Yeah.
maybe the money you put in affects the shooting days you have. It's so interesting and so important to bring this up as early as possible in the process, right? Because if you don't get the song, you may just have to change your idea altogether.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that's happening too now is this, all of a sudden, like on top of like the sound stuff. So for example, say you have a very digital social campaign. Well, you know that 85% of all people on social media actually are not listening to the audio. So that's why you see
Right.
some of the supers coming up, right? So you kind of even got to know what your media buy is too. So all of a sudden, if you're, you got an ad on the Super Bowl or the Oscars, or you're in a cinema ad, of course you want it to be big and all that stuff like that. And then the other thing too is like what adds another dimension to it is that, just we're in a more diverse world right now, which is fantastic. But sometimes we want to have, here's what the English version is, here's the French version, here's the Punjabi, here's the Mandarin version, and stuff like that, and Cantonese version. And so sometimes we're even doing that, whereas like we don't want to subtitle, so we don't want to have actors speaking on film. But even if you're from a different language, some of these songs, or even if it's just like instrumental, like it just works universal. Like I remember we worked with the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra a bunch of years ago, and I met with some people there, and it was just so fascinating. And I get this because I know nothing about classical music other than the big, famous ones from Mozart and stuff like that. But I really do like it. And when I go see classical music, it's more about feel. Like for me, it's a feel music, and they explain that music in particular, because there's never really, for the most part, any lyrics and so on, is it's a language. So classic, like the way that they explained it is that we're communicating in a language that is an audio language. And that's why, for example, I think where some of my favorite films, the scores to the films and stuff like that, like, Scorsese's Cape Fear and stuff like that. I love that film for so many reasons. But like that score, that over the top score, and like almost any Hans Zimmer film, um, there's so many, right, that directors
Yeah.
that really kind of get it. And it just, again, just kind of muse that scene and stuff like that. Or my favorite movie of all time is Lawrence of Arabia, and I hear that big music that you hear throughout the film, and this big David Lean film. It's just fantastic, right? And so yeah, so there's this, yeah, you just, for me, it's kind of language, music's language in an ad. It's not just making a good ad, it's thinking it all through. This
Yeah.
client has got all these different target groups. In fact, you look at, say, Toronto, or you say Vancouver or Montreal, and you look at where the population is going right now, right? Like at least a third of the population at the minimum is Asian and South Asian. Well,
Hmm.
like, so obviously lots of people that are, Asian, South Asian are watching kind of, the same stuff that everybody's watching. But then we have our own, like, media outlets and so on. And I said, if you can kind of use music to tell that story versus actors doing dialogue, we don't have to triple shoot everything. So, you don't triple shoot, you don't triple edit, you don't triple put, like color correct and all those things. And so you want to make sure you have a good cast that feels diverse too, but not like you want to. And nowadays, I'm very happy with what our team. It's very thoughtful casting of just, again, slice of life. Like you just go into a grocery store or anywhere like that, and you just see all types of people, right? So I don't feel like it's a force. And so if that's just the real story, and then all of a sudden near the end, maybe you've got the super and stuff like that along with the logos and stuff like that. Well, that's in a different language, but that's easier to actually version out.
Yeah. No, it's impressive. I mean, this has been amazing. So much of what we wanted has been covered, and you clearly have such an amazing breadth of knowledge across every single aspect of what you're doing, even though you're running an agency, which is incredibly impressive. So we're going to be having lots of different guests on our podcast, and I wanted to ask you to leave a question for the next guest. It could be music and creativity related, it could be not, but something in that vein would be amazing.
Okay, you're gonna make an ad, and you're gonna start with music first. And it could be one or two famous songs that you're going to make an ad with. What is your dream song
Oh, I
or
love
dream
that.
songs to actually make? That's my question.
Fabulous. Love it.
That's spectacular. Well, thank you so much, Scott. We don't want to take any more of your Costa Rican time.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We're very grateful for your time and for all the knowledge and wisdom that you shared with us.